Hey coin lovers! Welcome to the Worth Old Coins channel, your place to discover the hidden value and rare facts about old coins. In today's video we're revealing the top 4 valuable coins, and one of them might just be in your collection. So don't skip this video, let's find out their real worth. Top 1. The 1973 D 1 cent coin, often called the 1973 D Lincoln Memorial Cent, is a copper-based U.S. penny minted at the Denver Mint in Colorado in 1973. This coin belongs to the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The D mint mark under the date identifies that it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the 3 main U.S. mint facilities operating in that period: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Unlike the proof coins of the era, which came from San Francisco, the Denver pieces were made for circulation and are therefore among the most common 1973 cents in raw quantity, but that does not mean all are equal in collector desirability, since conditions strike quality and certain varieties affect value. Historical context of the 1973 penny: in 1973, the United States was going through an economically turbulent time marked by the aftermath of the Vietnam War, the ongoing Cold War, and the oil crisis. That began to form in late 1973. Inflation was slowly eroding the purchasing power of small coins, but the U.S. still maintained the traditional copper composition for the 1 cent piece. The Lincoln Memorial reverse design was in its 15th year of production, having replaced the earlier wheat ears reverse in 1959. The U.S. Mint in Denver, known for its high-volume production, was tasked with striking hundreds of millions of pennies that year to meet the nation's circulation demands. Design details: obverse. The obverse front of the 1973 D penny features the iconic bust of President Abraham Lincoln facing right, designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner. This design has been in use since 1909 and is one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. Above Lincoln's head is the inscription, "In God We Trust," a motto first used on coins in the 1860s. To the left of Lincoln is the word "Liberty," and to the right is the date 1973 with the small D mint mark below it. The portrait is sharply defined on well-struck examples, with Lincoln's coat lapel and hair curls showing fine details. However, many Denver strikes from this period suffer from slightly soft details due to worn dies or high-speed production. Design details: reverse. The reverse of the coin features the Lincoln Memorial designed by Frank Gasparo. This building is an actual landmark in Washington, D.C., honoring the 16th President of the United States. On the coin, the memorial is shown from the front with its classical columns and steps clearly visible. Above the memorial is the inscription, "United States of America," and below it the denomination, 1 cent. Between these two inscriptions above the memorial's roof is the national motto, "E pluribus unum," meaning, out of many, one. A unique detail of this design is that on well-struck coins, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, visible between the central columns, a subtle tribute to the man himself. Metal composition. The 1973 D penny is made of a bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This was the standard composition for U.S. cents from 1962 until 1982, when the rising cost of copper led the mint to switch to a copper-plated zinc core. At 3.11 grams and 19.05 millimeters in diameter, this coin feels heavier and more substantial compared to modern post-1982 pennies. This copper composition also gives it a distinct reddish tone when new, which over time can develop into a variety of brown and red-brown patinas depending on storage conditions. Minting process and mintage. The Denver Mint in 1973 struck an enormous number of these coins: 3,549,576,588 pieces, making it one of the highest mintage years for a Lincoln cent up to that time. This massive output was achieved through high-speed presses operating around the clock. Coins were struck from steel dies engraved with the Lincoln design and were ejected into large bins before being counted, bagged, and shipped to Federal Reserve banks. Because of this large mintage, finding a circulated 1973 D penny is very easy. They still appear in pocket change today. Circulation and condition. While common in worn condition, finding a 1973 D in pristine mint state with full luster and no contact marks can be surprisingly challenging. In circulation, the soft copper surface picks up nicks, scratches, and spots quickly. For collectors, the most desirable examples are those graded MS-65 Red, RD, or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. Such coins retain their full red copper brilliance and show no signs of spotting or carbon staining. Lower grades such as MS-63 or MS-64 are far more common and affordable. Varieties and errors. Although the 1973 D penny has no major design changes. Era collectors seek out certain minting mistakes such as double dies off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, or clipped planchets. One known minor variety for this date includes the RPM, repunched mint mark, where the D was punched into the die more than once, leading to a shadow-like doubling. These varieties can carry premiums depending on visibility and demand. Collector value. In circulated condition, a 1973 D penny is generally worth only its face value. However, fully red high-grade mint state coins can be worth $8 to $28, and exceptional examples graded MS 67RD or higher can bring hundreds of dollars at auction due to their scarcity in such perfect preservation. Era coins and certain varieties can increase value significantly, especially if they are dramatic or certified. Legacy and modern significance. The 1973 D penny represents a time in use coinage before the shift to cheaper metals. It's a tangible link to the pre-1982 copper era and part of the beloved Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which itself has become a nostalgic collector's pursuit since the reverse design changed to the Lincoln Bicentennial designs in 2009. For new collectors, it's a common, affordable entry point into the hobby. For historians, it's a small artifact from a pivotal decade in American history. Top 2, the 1985 D Lincoln Memorial Cent, is a U.S. copper-plated zinc penny minted at the Denver Mint in Colorado during the mid-1980s. The D mint mark under the date indicates its Denver origin. This coin belongs to the long-running Lincoln Cent series, which began in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. In 1985, the Lincoln Memorial reverse design was still in use, having replaced the earlier wheat ears reverse in 1959. The Denver Mint, known for its vast production capacity, struck over 5 billion pennies that year, making it a very common coin in circulation, but certain pristine or error examples remain desirable to collectors. Historical context of 1985. The year 1985 was part of the Reagan administration's economic period, with the U.S. in a phase of recovery from the early 1980s recession. Inflation had eased compared to the 1970s, but the penny's purchasing power continued to decline. It could still buy a small candy or be used in payphones, but its utility in everyday commerce was slowly diminishing. Importantly for coinage, this period was still relatively early in the U.S. Mint's use of copper-plated zinc planchets, which began in late 1982. By 1985, the Mint had fully adjusted its machinery and quality control to handle the new lighter planchets, but this composition change had long-term effects on durability and collector interest. Design obverse. Front. The obverse of the 1985 D penny features the enduring portrait of President Abraham Lincoln facing right, designed by Victor David Brenner and introduced in 1909. Above Lincoln's head is the motto "In God We Trust," which has been on U.S. coins since the 19th century. To Lincoln's left is the word "Liberty," symbolizing the core American ideal. To the right is the date 1985 with the small letter D beneath it, signifying the Denver Mint. On sharp strikes, Lincoln's coat, lapel, beard details, and hair curls are crisp, but many coins from this year show softness in these areas due to high-speed mass production. Design reverse, back. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., designed by Frank Gasparo. The central structure, with its columned neoclassical style, symbolizes national unity and respect for Lincoln's legacy. Above the memorial is "United States of America," and just below that is the Latin motto "E pluribus unum," out of many one, reflecting the federal union of the states. At the bottom is the denomination 1 cent. On well-struck examples, the tiny seated statue of Lincoln is visible between the central columns, a subtle but iconic detail of this reverse design. Metal composition. By 1985, the Lincoln cent was no longer made of traditional 95% copper. Rising copper prices in the early 1980s had forced the Mint to switch to a copper-plated zinc planchet consisting of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. The coin weighs 2.5 grams and measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter. This change reduced production costs, but also introduced a problem: zinc cores can corrode if the copper plating is damaged, leading to zinc rot or pitting over time. This makes finding a flawless 1985 D penny decades later somewhat more challenging than for older bronze cents. Minting process and mintage figures. The Denver Mint struck an enormous 5,287,399,926 pennies in 1985, one of the largest outputs of any U.S. coin for a single year and mint. High-speed presses fed blank zinc planchets into striking chambers where hardened steel dies imprinted the Lincoln designs under tons of pressure. After striking, coins were ejected into large hoppers, weighed, counted, and bagged for distribution. Due to the sheer volume produced, minor quality variations, weak strikes, and small imperfections were common. Circulation and condition. In circulated condition, the 1985 D penny remains extremely common. Millions still exist in everyday pocket change, though most are dull brown or spotted from years of handling. The challenge for collectors lies in finding coins in mint state 65 or better with full original red color. Red coins, abbreviated RD in grading, retain their bright coppery shine and have no darkening. Red-brown, RB, or brown, BN, coins are less valuable but still collectible. The zinc composition is also prone to small bubbles under the copper plating, so perfectly smooth, unspotted examples are prized. Known varieties. While 1985 D cents have no widely recognized major double die or overdate varieties, collectors search for minor die cracks, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and plating errors. A small but noticeable variety involves repunched mint marks, RPMs, where the D was punched into the die more than once. Plating blisters, small raised bubbles on the surface, are relatively common due to the zinc core, but these are generally considered defects, not premium errors, unless they are dramatic. Collector market value. In circulated condition, a 1985 D penny is worth face value. Uncirculated examples graded MS65RD are typically valued around $3 to $7, with MS66RD coins fetching $15 to $30. The true rarities are MS67RD examples, which can sell for $250 to $450 or more, as they are difficult to find with flawless surfaces and no spots. Any unusual error coin from this year can bring much higher prices depending on rarity and visual appeal. Top 3. The 1962 D Lincoln cent is a small copper coin produced at the Denver Mint in Colorado in 1962, part of the long-running Lincoln cent series first introduced in 1909. It carries the familiar D mint mark under the date on the obverse, which distinguishes it from coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint that year. The 1 cent denomination has always been a fundamental unit of U.S. coinage, but by the early 1960s inflation was slowly reducing its buying power. The 1962 D penny is notable because it was struck during the era when cents were still made from the classic bronze alloy, a 95% copper 5% tin and zinc mix, giving it a heavier weight and richer color than modern zinc cents. Historical context of the year 1962. The early 1960s in America were marked by optimism, a booming post-war economy, and cultural changes. John F. Kennedy was the U.S. president, and the nation was entering the space race in earnest. In coinage, the Lincoln Memorial reverse, introduced in 1959, was still relatively new, replacing the earlier wheat ears reverse. In 1962, Americans were still using pennies regularly for vending machines, payphones, and everyday purchases. The cost of copper was stable, allowing the mint to keep the traditional bronze alloy without concerns about metal value exceeding face value. The Denver Mint in this era was a major workhorse, striking billions of coins each year to keep up with the needs of the growing youth's economy. Design obverse, front. The obverse of the 1962 D penny features the right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. Above Lincoln's head appears the motto, "In God We Trust," placed in a slightly arched line following the coin's rim. To the left of Lincoln's portrait is the word "Liberty," representing one of America's foundational ideals. To the right, the date 1962 is clearly visible with a small D mint mark beneath it. On a sharply struck coin, fine details such as Lincoln's hair strands, cheek contour, and coat lapel are crisp, though in mass production some Denver pieces from this year show light softness in the hair and beard. Design reverse, back. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, depicts the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., rendered with fine architectural detail. The memorial's colonnade is front-facing, and on higher-grade coins you can see the tiny seated statue of Lincoln between the central columns, a tribute to the coin's obverse subject. Above the building in a bold arc is United States of America. Below that, but above the memorial's roofline, is the motto E pluribus unum, out of many one. Beneath the building is the denomination 1 cent. The design reflects mid-century U.S. coinage ideals, simple, symmetrical, and nationally symbolic. Metal composition and physical specs. The 1962 D penny is struck from the traditional bronze alloy, 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This composition had been used for most U.S. cents since 1864, except for wartime changes in 1943. The coin weighs 3.11 grams and measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter with a smooth, plain edge. When new, the coin had a bright reddish-orange color that could darken over time to shades of red-brown or chocolate brown depending on circulation and storage. The high copper content gives these coins a warmer tone and greater resistance to corrosion than later zinc core cents. Mintage figures and production. The Denver Mint produced an enormous number of cents in 1962, 1,793,148,400 pieces, making this date one of the most common of the early memorial cent years. Production ran at high speed on large-scale presses, with each die striking hundreds of thousands of coins before being replaced. Denver had a reputation for high-volume, reliable output, though not always with the sharpest strikes compared to the smaller San Francisco proof production. Circulation and longevity. In 1962, pennies like this one were heavily used in commerce. A single cent still had value. It could buy a stick of gum or contribute meaningfully toward a candy bar or a bus fare. Many 1962 D cents stayed in circulation for decades, and even in the 1990s they could still be found in pocket change. Today, most surviving examples are worn with smooth high points and a brown surface. Fully red, uncirculated coins are far scarcer and are sought by collectors who want pristine representatives of each date and mint mark. Varieties and errors. The 1962 D penny has a few minor collectible varieties, the most notable being repunched mint marks, RPMs, where the D was punched more than once into the die, creating a shadow-like doubling. Some examples also show small die cracks, die chips, or misaligned dies. Dramatic mint errors such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or double strikes exist, but are much scarcer, and their value depends on the severity and eye appeal. Collector value. In circulated condition, the 1962 D penny is typically worth just its face value unless it's an unusual error. In mint state red, RD, grades values increase. An MS 65 RD might sell for $5 to $8, while an MS 66 RD can bring $17 to $28. The finest known examples, graded MS 67 RD or better, can fetch over $400 at auction due to their scarcity in such perfect preservation. Red-brown, RB, and brown, BN, coins are less valuable but still desirable for filling date and mint collections. Top 4. The 1972 D Lincoln cent is a small copper coin minted at the Denver Mint in 1972 as part of the long-running Lincoln cent series first introduced in 1909. The small D mint mark under the date identifies it as a Denver issue, distinguishing it from the Philadelphia coins of the same year. T bears the Lincoln Memorial reverse, which had replaced the wheat ears design in 1959. The 1972 D cent is from the era when pennies were still made of the classic bronze alloy, giving them a heavier weight and richer tone than today's zinc-based cents. Although hundreds of millions were made, high-grade, fully red examples remain collectible. Historical context of 1972. The year 1972 fell during a period of both optimism and challenge in the United States. Richard Nixon was president. The Vietnam War was ongoing, and the nation was experiencing early signs of inflation. The penny still circulated heavily in everyday commerce. Vending machines, payphones, and store counters all regularly handled them. Copper prices were stable enough that the mint could continue producing bronze cents without concern for metal costs exceeding face value. This was a pre-1974 period before the oil crisis and major economic shifts that would hit the decade. Design. Obverse. Front. The obverse of the 1972 D penny features a bust of President Abraham Lincoln facing right, created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. The inscription, "In God We Trust," appears in an arc above Lincoln's head. The word "Liberty" sits to Lincoln's left, symbolizing the core American value. The date 1972 is placed to the right of the bust with the D mint mark below it. On well-struck examples, details like the lines in Lincoln's hair and beard are crisp, but high-speed Denver Mint production sometimes led to softer details in certain areas. Design. Reverse. Back. The reverse design, created by Frank Gasparo, depicts the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. viewed from the front. Above the memorial is the inscription, "United States of America," and just below that, the motto, "E pluribus unum," out of many, one. The denomination, 1 cent, appears along the lower rim. On sharp strikes, a tiny statue of Lincoln is visible between the central columns, a tribute to the coin's obverse subject. The reverse design was in use from 1959 until 2008, making it a familiar image for several generations. Metal composition and physical specs. The 1972 D penny is made from the traditional bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighs 3.11 grams, measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter, and has a plain edge. The high copper content gives these coins a distinctive reddish-orange tone when new, which can darken over time to shades of red-brown or chocolate brown. Unlike later zinc core, since these bronze coins resist corrosion better and feel heavier in hand. Mintage figures and production. The Denver Mint produced 2,665,071,400 Lincoln cents in 1972. This high mintage ensured their wide circulation throughout the United States. Denver's coining presses ran at high speed, striking millions of coins per day. The dies used to create the coins were steel tools engraved with a design, and they struck the bronze planchets under enormous pressure to create the raised images and lettering. Circulation and longevity. In 1972, a penny still had purchasing power, and the 1972 D-cent entered circulation immediately after striking. Many stayed in use for decades, and even today it's possible to find worn examples in change. However, most have lost their original mint luster and show signs of wear, making uncirculated pieces with full red color more desirable to collectors. The bronze alloy allowed these coins to remain serviceable for a long time without significant degradation. Varieties and errors. The Philadelphia Mint's 1972 cents are famous for a major double die variety, but this dramatic doubling is not found on Denver coins. However, the 1972 D-cent has its own minor varieties such as repunched mint marks, RPMs, and small die cracks. Collectors also search for striking errors like off-center coins, clipped planchets, and broad strikes. Dramatic and eye-catching errors can sell for much more than normal examples. Collector value. In circulated condition, the 1972 D-cent is worth face value. In high mint state grades with full red color values, climb an MS-65RD might bring $7 to $12, while MS-66RD examples can sell for $17 to $28. The rarest are MS-67RD pieces, which can fetch $350 or more at auction. Red-brown, RB, and brown, BN coins are less valuable but still have collector appeal. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe my channel for more videos.